Autumn, also known as fall in American English and Canadian English, is one of the 4 temperate seasons on Earth. Outside the tropics, autumn marks the transition from summer to winter in September or March. Autumn is the season when the duration of daylight becomes noticeably shorter and the temperature cools considerably. Day length decreases and night length increases as the season progresses until the winter solstice in December and June. One of its main features in temperate climates is the striking change in color for the leaves of deciduous trees as they prepare to shed. Etymology. The Mid-Autumn Festival is so named as it is held on the 15th of the 8th lunar month in the Chinese calendar around the autumn equinox. Its name is pronounced in Mandarin as Zhengji, Jng Chujit in Cantonese, and Chengqiuche in Hokkien. It is also called Pagohche in Hokkien. Chuseok, Korea festival celebrated on the same day in the Chinese and other East Asian lunisolar calendars. Tsukimi, Japanese variant of the Mid-Autumn Festival celebrated on the same day in the Chinese lunisolar calendar. Moon Festival or Harvest Moon Festival, because of the celebration's association with the full moon on this night, as well as the traditions of moon worship and moon viewing. Tt Trung Thursday, in Vietnamese. Also known as the Children's Festival in Vietnam. Most festival songs are sung by the children. Lantern Festival, a term sometimes used in Singapore, Malaysia, and Indonesia, which is not to be confused with the Lantern Festival in China that occurs on the 15th day of the first month of the Chinese calendar. However, Mid-Autumn Festival is more widely used by locals when referring to the festival in English, and Zhengji is used when referring to the festival in Chinese. Bon Om Tuk, or the Water and Moon Festival in Cambodian. The festival is held each year in November for 3 days. Meanings. The festival celebrates 3 fundamental concepts that are closely connected. Gathering, such as family and friends coming together, or harvesting crops for the festival. It is said the moon is the brightest and roundest on this day, which means family reunion. Consequently, this is the main reason why the festival is thought to be important. Thanksgiving, to give thanks for the harvest, or for harmonious unions. Praying, such as for babies, a spouse, beauty, longevity, or for a good future. Traditions and myths surrounding the festival are formed around these concepts, although traditions have changed over time due to changes in technology, science, economy, culture, and religion. It's about well-being together. Origins and development. The Chinese have celebrated the harvest during the autumn full moon since the Shang dynasty. The term mid-autumn first appeared in Rites of Zhou, a written collection of rituals of the Western Zhou dynasty. As for the royal court, it was dedicated to the goddess Taiyin Xingjun. This is still true for Taoism and Chinese folk religion. The celebration as a festival only started to gain popularity during the early Tang dynasty. One legend explains that Emperor Xianzong of Tang started to hold formal celebrations in his palace after having explored the Moon Palace. In the northern Song dynasty, the Mid-Autumn Festival has become a popular folk festival, and officially designated the 15th day of the 8th month of the lunar calendar as the Mid-Autumn Festival. By the Ming and Qing dynasties, the Mid-Autumn Festival had become one of the main folk festivals in China. The Empress Dowager Cixi enjoyed celebrating Mid-Autumn Festival so much that she would spend the period between the 13th and 17th day of the 8th month staging elaborate rituals. Moon worship. An important part of the festival celebration is moon worship. The ancient Chinese believed in rejuvenation being associated with the moon and water, and connected this concept to the menstruation of women, calling it monthly water. The Zhuang people, for example, have an ancient fable saying the sun and moon are a couple and the stars are their children, and when the moon is pregnant, it becomes round, and then becomes crescent after giving birth to a child. These beliefs made it popular among women to worship and give offerings to the moon on this evening. In some areas of China, there are still customs in which men do not worship the moon and the women do not offer sacrifices to the kitchen gods. In China, the Mid-Autumn Festival symbolizes the family reunion, and on this day, all families will appreciate the moon in the evening, because it is the 15th day of the 8th month of the Chinese lunisolar calendar, when the moon is at its fullest. There is a beautiful myth about the Mid-Autumn Festival, that is Chang'e flying to the moon. Offerings are also made to a more well-known lunar deity, Chang'e, known as the moon goddess of immortality. The myths associated with Chang'e explain the origin of moon worship during this day. One version of the story is as follows, as described in Liu Yang's Handbook of Chinese Mythology. In the ancient past, there was a hero named Hou Yi who was excellent at archery. His wife was Chang'e. One year, the 10 suns rose in the sky together, causing great disaster to the people. Yi shot down 9 of the suns and left only one to provide light. An immortal admired Yi and sent him the elixir of immortality. Yi did not want to leave Chang'e and be immortal without her, so he let Chang'e keep the elixir. However, Peng Meng, one of his apprentices, knew this secret. So, on the 15th of August in the Chinese lunisolar calendar, when Yi went hunting, Peng Meng broke into Yi's house and forced Chang'e to give the elixir to him. Chang'e refused to do so. Instead, she swallowed it and flew into the sky. Since she loved her husband and hoped to live nearby, she chose the moon for her residence. When Yi came back and learned what had happened, he felt so sad that he displayed the fruits and cakes Chang'e liked in the yard and gave sacrifices to his wife. People soon learned about these activities, and since they also were sympathetic to Chang'e, they participated in these sacrifices with Yi. When people learned of this story, they burnt incense on a long altar and prayed to Chang'e, now the goddess of the moon, for luck and safety. The custom of praying to the moon on Mid-Autumn Day has been handed down for thousands of years since that time. Handbook of Chinese Mythology also describes an alternate common version of the myth. After the hero Hou Yi shot down 9 of the 10 suns, he was pronounced king by the thankful people. However, he soon became a conceited and tyrannical ruler. In order to live long without death, he asked for the elixir from Zhuang Mu. But his wife, Chang'e, stole it on the 15th of August because she did not want the cruel king to live long and hurt more people. She took the magic potion to prevent her husband from becoming immortal. Hou Yi was so angry when discovered that Chang'e took the elixir, he shot at his wife as she flew toward the moon, though he missed. Chang'e fled to the moon and became the spirit of the moon. Hou Yi died soon because he was overcome with great anger. Thereafter, people offer a sacrifice to Chang'e on every 15th day of 8th month to commemorate Chang'e's action. Celebration. The festival was a time to enjoy the successful reaping of rice and wheat with food offerings made in honor of the moon. Today, it is still an occasion for outdoor reunions among friends and relatives to eat mooncakes and watch the moon, a symbol of harmony and unity. During a year of a solar eclipse, it is typical for governmental offices, banks, and schools to close extra days in order to enjoy the extended celestial celebration an eclipse brings. The festival is celebrated with many cultural or regional customs, among them burning incense in reverence to deities including Chang'e. Performance of dragon and lion dances, which is mainly practiced in southern China. Lanterns. A notable part of celebrating the holiday is the carrying of brightly lit lanterns, lighting lanterns on towers, or floating sky lanterns. Another tradition involving lanterns is to write riddles on them and have other people try to guess the answers. It is difficult to discern the original purpose of lanterns in connection to the festival, but it is certain that lanterns were not used in conjunction with moon worship prior to the Tang dynasty. Traditionally, the lantern has been used to symbolize fertility, and functioned mainly as a toy and decoration. But today the lantern has come to symbolize the festival itself. In the old days, lanterns were made in the image of natural things, myths, and local cultures. Over time, a greater variety of lanterns could be found as local cultures became influenced by their neighbors. As China gradually evolved from an agrarian society to a mixed agrarian commercial one, traditions from other festivals began to be transmitted into the Mid-Autumn Festival, such as the putting of lanterns on rivers to guide the spirits of the drowned as practiced during the Ghost Festival, which is observed a month before. Hong Kong fishermen during the Qing dynasty, for example, would put up lanterns on their boats for the Ghost Festival and keep the lanterns up until Mid-Autumn Festival. Mooncakes. Making and sharing mooncakes is one of the hallmark traditions of this festival. In Chinese culture, a round shape symbolizes completeness and reunion. Thus, the sharing and eating of round mooncakes among family members during the week of the festival signifies the completeness and unity of families. In some areas of China, there is a tradition of making mooncakes during the night of the Mid-Autumn Festival. The senior person in that household would cut the mooncakes into pieces and distribute them to each family member, signifying family reunion. In modern times, however, making mooncakes at home has given way to the more popular custom of giving mooncakes to family members, although the meaning of maintaining familial unity remains. Although typical mooncakes can be around a few centimeters in diameter, imperial chefs have made some as large as 8 meters in diameter, with its surface pressed with designs of Chang'e, cassia trees, or the Moon Palace. One tradition is to pile 13 mooncakes on top of each other to mimic a pagoda, the number 13 being chosen to represent the 13 months in a full Chinese lunisolar year. The spectacle of making very large mooncakes continues in modern China. According to Chinese folklore, a Turpan businessman offered cakes to Emperor Taizong of Tang in his victory against the Xiongnu on the 15th day of the 8th Chinese lunisolar month. Taizong took the round cakes and pointed to the moon with a smile, saying, "I'd like to invite the toad to enjoy the Hu cake." After sharing the cakes with his ministers, the custom of eating these Hu cakes spread throughout the country. Eventually these became known as mooncakes. Although the legend explains the beginnings of mooncake giving, its popularity and ties to the festival began during the Song dynasty. Another popular legend concerns the Han Chinese's uprising against the ruling Mongols at the end of the Yuan dynasty, in which the Han Chinese used traditional mooncakes to conceal the message that they were to rebel on Mid-Autumn Day. Because of strict controls upon Han Chinese families imposed by the Mongols, in which only 1 out of every 10 households was allowed to own a knife guarded by a Mongolian, this coordinated message was important to gather as many available weapons as possible. Other foods and food displays. Imperial dishes served on this occasion included 9-jointed lotus roots which symbolize peace, and watermelons cut in the shape of lotus petals which symbolize reunion. Teacups were placed on stone tables in the garden, where the family would pour tea and chat, waiting for the moment when the full moon's reflection appeared in the center of their cups. Owing to the timing of the plant's blossoms, cassia wine is the traditional choice for the reunion wine drunk on the occasion. Also, people will celebrate by eating cassia cakes and candy. In some places, people will celebrate by drinking osmanthus wine and eating osmanthus mooncakes. Food offerings made to deities are placed on an altar set up in the courtyard, including apples, pears, peaches, grapes, pomegranates, melons, oranges, and pomelos. One of the first decorations purchased for the celebration table is a clay statue of the jade rabbit. In Chinese folklore, the jade rabbit was an animal that lived on the moon and accompanied Chang'e. Offerings of soybeans and coxcomb flowers were made to the jade rabbit. Nowadays, in southern China, people will also eat some seasonal fruit that may differ in different districts but carrying the same meaning of blessing. Courtship and matchmaking. The mid-autumn moon has traditionally been a choice occasion to celebrate marriages. Girls would pray to moon deity Chang'e to help fulfill their romantic wishes. In some parts of China, dances are held for young men and women to find partners. For example, young women are encouraged to throw their handkerchiefs to the crowd, and the young man who catches and returns the handkerchief has a chance at romance. In Daguang, in southwest Gansu province, young men and women of the Dong people would make an appointment at a certain place. The young women would arrive early to overhear remarks made about them by the young men. The young men would praise their lovers in front of their fellows, in which finally the listening women would walk out of the thicket. Pairs of lovers would go off to a quiet place to open their hearts to each other. Games and activities. During the 1920s and 1930s, ethnographer Chow Wei-pang conducted research on traditional games among men, women, and children on or around the Mid-Autumn Day in the Guangdong province. These games relate to flights of the soul, spirit possession, or fortune-telling. One type of activity, Ascent to Heaven, involves a young lady selected from a circle of women to ascend into the celestial realm. While being enveloped in the smoke of burning incense, she describes the beautiful sights and sounds she encounters. Another activity, Descent into the Garden, played among younger girls, detailed each girl's visit to the heavenly gardens. According to legend, a flower tree represented her, and the number and color of the flowers indicated the sex and number of children she would have in her lifetime. Men played a game called Descent of the Eight Immortals, where one of the 8 immortals took possession of a player, who would then assume the role of a scholar or warrior. Children would play a game called Encircling the Toad, where the group would form a circle around a child chosen to be a Toad King and chanted a song that transformed the child into a toad. He would jump around like a toad until water was sprinkled on his head, in which he would then stop. Practices by regions and cultures. China, Xiamen, Hong Kong and Macau. Ethnic minorities in China. Taiwan. In Taiwan, and its outlying islands Penghu, Kinmen, and Matsu, the Mid-Autumn Festival is a public holiday. Outdoor barbecues have become a popular affair for friends and family to gather and enjoy each other's company. Children also make and wear hats made of pomelo rinds. It is believed Chang'e, the Lady in the Moon, will notice children with her favorite fruit and bestow good fortune upon them. Similar traditions in other countries. Similar traditions are found in other parts of Asia and also revolve around the full moon. These festivals tend to occur on the same day or around the Mid-Autumn Festival. East Asia. Japan, Korea, Southeast Asia, Cambodia, Laos, Myanmar, Singapore, Vietnam, South Asia, India, Sri Lanka, North America, Canada and the United States. Dates. The Mid-Autumn Festival is held on the 15th day of the 8th month in the Han calendar, essentially the night of a full moon which falls near the autumnal equinox. In 2018, it fell on September 24. It will occur on these days in coming years. 2021, September 21. 2022, September 10. 2023, September 29.